Welcome to Tales Atelier. Tonight's compilation is about the moments you feel eyes on you, even when you're alone. The camera that turns on by itself. The footsteps that stop when you stop. The sense that someone knows your routine better than you do. In these stories, the watchers are patient, and they're closer than you think.
Have you ever felt someone watching you in a place where no one should care? That was me, the first night I noticed her. Elevators were just boxers to get from one floor to another. Awkward, quiet, forgettable. But then she stepped in. Dark hair, sharp coat, laptop bag slung over one shoulder. She flashed a polite smile, the kind strangers give when sharing a cramped space. I didn't think anything of it, just another tenant heading home after a long shift. But something in the way her eyes lingered stuck with me. It kept happening, not occasionally, not by accident. Every evening. I'd finish work late, shuffle into the elevator, half asleep, and just as the doors started gliding shut, her hand would appear. She'd slide inside with a soft thank you and that same smile. Always timed perfectly, too perfectly. She never rushed, never hesitated. It was like she knew exactly when my finger hit the button. Still, I told myself it was harmless. People shared commutes every day. I tried not to read into it. One night, the elevator reached my floor. I stepped out, ready to collapse on my couch, when I realized she wasn't moving. She stood inside, eyes locked on me, smiling like we were in on some secret. Only when the doors started closing did she finally step out, right behind me. Her footsteps were so soft, I only heard them when the hallway air changed. I kept walking, replaying the moment, trying to pretend it was nothing. But my pulse wouldn't settle. Her silence felt heavier than words. The hall felt too quiet as I walked. Every fluorescent hum sounded sharper. Every shadow stretched longer. I could feel her presence behind me, steady, unhurried, like she had all the time in the world. When I reached my door and slipped my key in, I turned. She stood down the hall, hands folded neatly over her laptop bag, still watching, still smiling. She didn't wave, didn't speak. Just stared until my door clicked shut. Afterward, I stood in the dark, trying to slow my breathing. I tried to shake it off. I cooked dinner, scrolled mindlessly, told myself it was just an awkward moment. People zone out. People stare without realizing. It didn't have to mean anything. But when I opened my briefcase later that night, something fluttered out. A folded slip of paper rested on the floor. I hadn't put anything like that inside. For a second, I just stared at it, too afraid to touch it. My hands felt colder than the apartment. And something in my chest tightened. When I finally unfolded the note, 5 handwritten words stared back at me.
I like watching you closely.
The ink was neat, almost careful. My heart kicked hard, stumbling into a sprint. I dropped the paper immediately, like it burned. I lived alone. No one touched my belongings. No one had a reason to. Which meant someone had gone through my bag without me noticing. Someone close enough to search it, but calm enough not to leave a trace, except the message. That was the moment denial cracked straight down the middle. The next morning, I tried to be rational. I told myself I'd misplaced the note somewhere, that maybe it slipped in during a hectic moment. But Deep down, I knew exactly whose handwriting it was. That evening, when I saw her in the lobby, the world inside me tightened. She leaned casually against the elevator wall, smiling like she had been waiting for me. There was no rush, no surprise. Just a soft greeting as the doors chimed open. My hands trembled when I stepped in. Her timing stopped feeling accidental. She turned up everywhere. Behind me in the cafe line, across the street from my office, stepping out of the convenience store just as I walked past. She didn't speak to me. She didn't approach. She just stayed in my orbit, always close enough to see, never close enough to confront. Her smile was constant, polite, unreadable. Every time I glimpsed at her, my stomach tightened. I started checking over my shoulder so often, I felt dizzy. After another long night, I rushed into the empty elevator and let myself breathe for the first time in hours. But just before the doors closed, a hand slipped through. Hers. She stepped inside so quietly I barely heard her shoes touch the floor.
"How was your day?"
She asked, voice calm, like we were old coworkers catching up. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My heartbeat was loud enough to drown out the elevator's hum. She watched me with a softness I couldn't read. When the doors opened on my floor, I bolted out, too shaken to look back. But something made me turn anyway. She stood perfectly still, her expression unchanged. And then her lips moved, silent, deliberate. It took me a second to understand the shapes she was forming. Numbers. My apartment number. She watched my face as I realized it. Watched the fear hit me. Her smile widened, just a fraction. The door slid shut, sealing her expression in my mind, like a photograph I'd never forget. I locked my door 3 times that night, hands shaking so badly I missed the deadbolt twice. Hours passed before my pulse slowed enough to think straight. In the morning, sunlight didn't help. I kept replaying her mouthing my apartment number, like a private joke only she understood. When I opened my coat closet, something slid from the pocket. A folded slip of paper identical to the first. Same careful handwriting. Same chill down my spine. This one said only,
"See you upstairs."
I started avoiding the elevator entirely. 16 flights of stairs every morning, lungs burning, shirts soaked by the time I reached the bottom. But some nights, after brutal overtime, my body gave in. One night near midnight, desperate to get home, I pressed the button. Silence filled the lobby. No footsteps. No whisper of perfume. I thought maybe, finally, I'd ride alone. The doors began closing slowly, mercifully, until a hand slid through the gap like a blade. She stepped inside, smiling softly. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The elevator hummed upward while she stood inches away. Her posture calm, hands folded neatly around her bag. Halfway up, she crouched down and set a small paper cup on the floor between us. A clean white cup with a cardboard sleeve. In thick black marker, scrawled across it, were the words,
"See you tomorrow."
She straightened again, eyes locked on mine. Her breathing steady and measured, like she was savoring every second of the ride. I stepped out the second the doors opened, refusing to touch the cup. But I heard her laugh. A soft, breathy sound that followed me down the hall, long after the doors closed. I kept my head down, fumbling for my keys. When I reached my apartment, my heart nearly stopped. Sitting neatly outside my door was the same cup. Same handwriting. Still warm. I don't remember unlocking my door. I only remember slamming it behind me and sinking to the floor, legs shaking uncontrollably. Sleep became impossible. I spent hours sitting with my back against the door, listening for any footsteps in the hall. Even the smallest creak made my muscles jump. The cup stayed outside for 2 days before I finally tossed it down the trash chute. But throwing it away didn't help. I wasn't afraid of the cup. I was afraid of what it meant, that she could reach my door without being heard, that she waited for the exact moments I let my guard slip, and she never misjudged. Fear eventually burned itself out. Shock faded, replaced by something sharper. Anger. Anger made everything clearer. If she could track me, study me, appear anywhere I turned, then I needed to understand how. I started logging everything. Exact times she appeared, floors she hovered on, every glance, every near encounter. I kept the notes and cup sleeves in a shoebox under my bed, each piece of evidence arranged chronologically. I needed proof. I needed a pattern. And slowly, a dangerous clarity took shape. Once I realized her behavior wasn't random, I began testing her. I'd choose a floor I never used, step out, and wait in the silent hallway. Without fail, within seconds, she would appear. Never running, never breathless. Just emerging around a corner, as if she already knew where I'd be. She'd offer a silent nod, or a polite hello, but nothing more. Her smile never changed. It was patient, confident, almost pleased. The more I tested her, the more I felt she understood exactly what I was doing. One night, I left my bag unzipped with a blank slip inside. I placed it carefully, marking the orientation to make sure I'd know if it was disturbed. When I checked it later that evening, my stomach dropped. The slip was gone. In its place was another small note. Same handwriting, same looping digits. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't trailing me by coincidence. She was accessing my things without hesitation, without fear of getting caught. That was the moment denial fully shattered. Determined, I waited for the night I knew she'd linger. At 3 a.m., the building was silent except for the hum of distant pipes. I pressed the elevator button, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The doors slid open, and she was already inside, standing perfectly still, as if she'd been waiting hours for me to arrive. Laptop bag at her side, hair tucked behind one ear, smile thinner this time, like she sensed the shift in me. I stepped in anyway. For the first time, she didn't look triumphant. She tilted her head, studying my expression, searching for something she couldn't quite place. I held her gaze, refusing to flinch. The cables hummed, the floor numbers blinked upward, and her smile slowly returned. Only this time, it felt strained, uncertain. I realized then that she wasn't invincible. She was careful, methodical, but she wasn't expecting me to push back. When the elevator reached my floor, I stepped out and did something reckless. I smiled back. By then, I wasn't just frightened. I was prepared. Weeks of tracking her movements had shown me exactly when she appeared, which floors she liked to linger on, which nights she camped in the lobby pretending to scroll her phone. She thought she was studying me. She had no idea I'd been doing the same. The shoebox under my bed held everything. Dates, times, notes, cup sleeves. Enough to make anyone believe me. Enough to make someone finally take this seriously. The next step was obvious. I went to building security. My voice shook as I explained, but the evidence didn't. One guard sifted through the stack of notes with a grim expression. Another examined the timestamps on my phone. They asked the same questions I'd been asking myself. How she followed me so precisely. How she reached my floor unnoticed. How she slipped things into my belongings without being seen. After a long silence, the supervisor nodded.
We'll help you catch her.
We planned it carefully. I would bait her the way I had so many times before. But this time, they'd be watching. Cameras were added to the elevator corners, small enough to blend into the metal trim. Security would wait in the lobby, close enough to step in the moment the doors opened. I barely slept the night before. Every creak in the building made my pulse jump. But when morning came, the plan was set. All that was left was to let her find me. That evening, the lobby was silent. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while my reflection stared back at me in the elevator doors. Pale, tense, exhausted. I pressed the call button. The hum of machinery echoed faintly above. The doors opened. And there she was. Already inside. Laptop bag slung over her shoulder, hair perfectly in place, and that familiar smile, soft and polite, like she'd been waiting for this moment all along. My throat went dry, but I stepped in anyway. The door slid shut in front of us. The elevator felt smaller than usual. The air warm and still. She studied my face like she was trying to read the thoughts I'd buried for weeks.
You look tired.
She said gently. I didn't answer. My heart hammered, but I kept my eyes forward.
You don't have to be nervous.
She added.
We see each other all the time.
Something shifted in her voice, a delicate tremor, just enough to feel out of place. She sensed the change in me. I turned toward her. This ride ends tonight. Her smile faltered, just barely, but enough. Her eyes flicked upward, toward the small blinking red lights tucked into the corners. She realized they weren't part of the old system. For the first time since I'd met her, she lost control of her expression. Panic didn't show outright, but there was a tightening at the corner of her mouth, a sudden stillness in her shoulders. The cables hummed as the elevator slowed to the lobby. The doors opened. Security stepped in immediately, calm but firm. She tried to laugh, a thin, brittle sound.
We're neighbors.
She insisted.
We ride together all the time.
But when the guards held up the folder of notes, her handwriting on every slip, her voice cracked. She reached for the papers, as if she could somehow pull the words back into her hands, hide them again. Instead, she froze. Her face went completely blank, the smile finally gone. She whispered.
You ruined it.
They escorted her out of the building. No shouting, no fight. Just the steady tap of her heels on the tile and the hush of security murmuring instructions. I stood in the corner, gripping the metal railing until my fingers ached. Watching her disappear from the lobby felt unreal. The same woman who'd haunted every elevator ride, every hallway step, now shrinking into the distance. The space around me felt wider, lighter, but not entirely safe. Not yet. The silence left behind was too heavy. Later, the police told me the numbers she wrote weren't linked to anything. No accounts, no addresses, no hidden messages. Just digits she chose at random, meaningless on their own. But for me, every scribble felt like a warning, every smile a threat waiting to bloom. They said she'd been reported at other complexes too, appearing unexpectedly, memorizing tenants' habits, following them without touching them. She liked being close. She liked being unnoticed. I wondered how many others hadn't realized in time. The next morning, I took the elevator for the first time without fear. No hands slipping through the doors. No eyes tracking me from the corner. No soft laugh echoing in the metal walls. I reached my floor, coffee in hand, breathing easier than I had in weeks. When the doors opened, I half expected her silhouette waiting. But there was nothing. Just quiet carpet, soft hallway light, and my own footsteps heading home. For the first time in a long while, the silence felt like mine. You ever stop at a yard sale for no reason? Not because you need anything, just because the folding tables and cardboard boxes call to you like they're holding secrets. That's how it was that Saturday. I was walking the neighborhood, lukewarm coffee in hand, half awake, when I saw the signs. Neighborhood sale today. Arrows pointed toward a cul-de-sac I never usually walked. By the time I turned the corner, half the street was a patchwork of tarps and tables, kids with sticky lemonade stands. I told myself I was just browsing, just looking. Then I found the box, buried under old coats and cracked toys, beat up cardboard, sagging at the corners. One strip of duct tape across the front says, tapes. VHS, dozens of them. Most were unmarked, just black spines and fading stickers. A few had handwritten labels. Picnic 1987, home video, Christmas 92. The kind of thing every family had once, now lay forgotten. The box was heavy when I lifted it. How much? I asked the woman running the table. She waved a gloved hand.
$1 for the whole thing. They came out of storage. I don't even know what's on them.
$1, less than my coffee. I laughed at myself the whole walk home. Who even has a VHS player anymore? That would be me. Old one, shoved in a closet, left over from college movie nights. And maybe, just maybe, I thought I'd find something funny, a blooper reel, a forgotten moment. That afternoon, I dusted it off, hooked it to the TV, blue screen flickering. The smell of warm plastic and dust filled the room. I slid in the first tape. The screen sputtered, hissed with static, then cleared. Not a birthday party, not a wedding. A street. My street. Empty, at night. The camera wasn't moving, just fixed on a familiar corner, the stop sign across from my house. The footage was grainy. Headlights from passing cars flared to bright. I leaned in. The houses looked younger, trees smaller, paint fresher. This wasn't recent. I ejected the tape, tried the next one. Same street, different angle, another car parked crooked. A third tape, closer. This time my own front yard, porch light glowing faintly, curtains drawn. My address numbers hung crooked on the siding. My skin prickled. Would you have stopped there? Told yourself it was a coincidence? Just old footage of the neighborhood? I didn't. I kept going, tape after tape, street after street. But always circling back to my block, my house. Sometimes further away, sometimes closer. Like someone was walking toward me in slow motion. The sixth tape stuttered. Static chewed the screen. Then, snap, image returned. The camera pointed up, at a second-story window. My window? Curtains drawn, but a silhouette stood behind them. Still. Frozen. It looked like me. I slammed stop. My own pale reflection stared back from the TV. The box sat beside me, half full. I told myself I wouldn't watch another. Told myself to stop. But wouldn't you want to know what the rest of the tapes would show? Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that silhouette behind the curtains. Unmoving, almost taunting. I told myself it was the tape, just shadows. VHS grain, tricks of the eye. Still, by morning, my stomach was tight. My coffee sat untouched. By noon, I was back in front of the TV, remote in hand, like a weapon. The next tape loads, static at the edges. Then it cleared. My street again, but daytime now. Wrong paint colors on the cars. A kid pedaled by on a banana seat bike, looked straight into the camera, then vanished off frame. I paused it. The corner house looked brand new, trim white, siding perfect. This was decades ago. The hairs on my arms stood up. Whoever filmed this hadn't just passed through, they'd lingered. They came back over and over, documenting the changes, watching the neighborhood age. I fed in another tape. My block, again. Closer this time. The porch light came into view, an older model, railing unbroken. Then, my door. Closed. No movement. But the camera didn't turn away. It stared, long enough to make me shift in my seat, my pulse steady in my throat. Who films closed doors? I hit eject, but my hand shook as I loaded the next one. This tape showed my mailbox. Dead center, my house number, bold and familiar. Same angle I see every morning before work. I caught myself glancing toward the window. Was someone watching me now? Holding a camera in return? Would you stop or keep looking? I kept looking. Compelled, terrified, unable to turn away. By late afternoon, cassettes littered the floor. The view kept creeping closer. First the street, then the curb, then the yard, then the porch. I didn't even realize I was checking the window between tapes. Peeking through the curtain, scanning the street, the neighbors' hedges, the cars parked too long, but nothing, just silence, sunlight. Still, the dread grew thicker every time I hit play. Then came the one that froze me. The upstairs window again, my window. But this time, the curtains weren't drawn, they were open. Sunlight glowing through the sheer fabric. And something moved, a shadow across the frame. Not me, too tall, too heavy. I slammed pause, my thumb ached. The figure was blurry, mid-motion, but it was there. And I was living alone. I shut off the TV, left the house, pacing the block like a madman. Neighbors waved, smiled, oblivious. By the time I circled back, the box was still there. Still half full, still waiting, and I couldn't stop asking. Am I the one being watched, or is the house? I should have stopped. Packed the tapes back into their sagging box, shoved it in the trash, forgotten everything. But obsession has teeth. The more I told myself to walk away, the more my fingers itched for the next cassette. That night, I gave in. The tape clicked. Static trembled on the screen. When it cleared, the frame was already too close, angled at my front steps. The paint on the railing looked fresh, not chipped like it is now. My porch mat was there too, an older version I barely remembered from childhood. The camera lingered. 30 seconds, maybe more, just my door. I leaned forward without meaning to, waiting for it to open. It never did. I exhaled shakily. Eject, insert, play. The next tape started the same way. My porch, my door. This time, the footage pushed forward. Closer. Closer. Until the lens pressed right up against the screen door, framing only the wood grain. The faint glint of brass from the deadbolt. I swallowed hard. The living room was silent, but I swore I could hear someone breathing, just on the other side of the camera. What would you have done? Kept watching? Or unplugged everything and run? I kept watching. The following tape showed the interior. My heart stopped when I realized it. The camera was inside. The angle tilted across the entryway. My couch, a coffee table I hadn't owned in years. But it was my living room, unmistakable. I scrambled for the eject button, but froze halfway. My hand hovered in the air, trembling. What if this was proof? Proof that someone had been here, long before me, long before now. I let the tape play. The camera moved slow and deliberate toward the staircase. My breath caught. The picture was dark, but I recognized the banister, the creak in the third step. The lens tilted upward. The second floor, my bedroom door, shut tight. The tape cut out. I sat there, sweating, palms pressed into my knees. The player hissed, mocking me. One more, I told myself. Just one more. The next tape jolted to life already upstairs. The camera angled toward my bedroom door again. Closed, silent. The lens zoomed slightly, shaky, as though whoever held it had been excited or nervous. And then, the door opened. Not by much, just a crack. The screen went black like the tape had been cut. But my whole body flinched, like it had happened in real time. I lunged for the power button, heart pounding so hard, my vision blurred. When silence returned, the TV's standby light glowed red. I sat shivering. That's when it hit me. If these tapes were decades old, if the furniture matched another lifetime, if the cars outside belonged 2 years gone, then who had been holding the camera inside my house? And worse, how many times had they walked through that door while people lived here unaware? Street, yard, porch, door, living room, stairs. What came next was obvious. My bedroom. By the next morning I made myself a promise. No more tapes. I'd leave the box by the curb, let the garbage truck chew it up, and pretend none of it ever happened. But paranoia doesn't fade, it gnaws. I couldn't pour coffee without checking the window, couldn't grab the mail without scanning the street. By noon, I caved. I slid in another cassette. The picture jumped, grainy but sharper. The camera was inside again, angled low. In the hallway, my living room dim in the background. The shot panned up, slow and deliberate, toward the landing. My bedroom door stood wide open. I froze. That wasn't right. I always shut it before bed. The tape cut to static, then flickered back, now halfway up the stairs. The lens shook like the person holding it was breathing hard. Step by step, each one louder than the last. The banister came into view, my bedroom door yawning wider. I caught myself holding my breath. The camera climbed, and climbed. Then, the tape jumped again. Suddenly, the camera was inside my bedroom. The walls were bare, the paint a different shade, but the shape of the room was mine. The lens drifted toward the bed, sheets messy, the glow of a lamp on the nightstand. My skin crawled, and there, in the corner of the screen, a figure, shadowed, barely visible. Tall, broad shoulders. Just standing. I couldn't look away. Would you rewind? Pause? Smash the tape. I paused. The freeze frame blurred slightly, like the camera itself was scared to focus. But it was there. Watching, waiting. I hit play again, hand trembling. The lens crept closer to the bed. The figure vanished, swallowed by static. I tore the tape from the player, heart hammering in my chest. But before I could shove it back into the box, a sound stopped me cold. A faint knock. From upstairs. 3 knocks. Slow, patient. I told myself it was the pipes, the house settling, anything but what it sounded like. I climbed the stairs. Each step groaned under my weight. The air was heavier than usual, charged. My bedroom door was ajar. I hadn't left it that way. Inside, nothing. Just my bed, my dresser, curtains swaying gently. The window was shut tight. No figure, no shadow. But on the floor, half hidden beneath the bed, was another tape. Black spine, labels scribbled in marker, last night. My stomach lurched, skin prickled. I didn't remember bringing it upstairs. I didn't remember labeling it. But it was there. And I couldn't stop thinking. What would it show if I pressed play? I told myself I wouldn't watch it. That I'd throw it out, smash it, burn it. But the tape felt warm. Heavier than the rest, like it wanted to be played. Before I could stop myself, I was back downstairs. TV humming, VHS slot open. My thumb hovered over the button. And then, click. Blue screen. Static. A breath that wasn't mine. The time stamp blinked in the corner. Last night's date. The angle was wrong. Too low. Tilted. Like someone crouching at the bottom of the stairs. The image steadied. And there I was. Walking up. My own legs. My own back. I froze. It wasn't home footage. It was me, filmed from behind. From inside my house. The camera followed. Step by step. Always a second behind. I could hear the creak of wood through the speakers. The same rhythm as the one above me now. My skin prickled. The lens tilted, almost curiously, like it was breathing with me. And just before I reached the top, a faint whisper crawled through the static. Too soft to catch, too human to ignore. Then, jump cut. The camera was in my bedroom now. The shot trembled, like whoever held it was excited. The sheets on my bed moved. Me again, climbing under the blanket. I stared, watching myself sleep. Unaware, mouth half open. The lens drifted closer. Closer. Until the whole frame was my face. I could almost feel my own breath echoing back through the screen. The audio warped, dragging like it was sinking underwater. And behind my sleeping body, a shadow shifted. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then it leaned forward. Tall, broad, and the way it tilted its head, it was exactly like mine. Its fingers twitched when mine did, like a mirror that learned to move first. I couldn't breathe. The shadow stepped into the lamp glow. Its face was blurred, static chewing the features. But I could feel it watching. Then, on screen, my eyes snapped open. I gasped so hard the remote clattered to the floor. My on-screen self stared straight at the camera. No hesitation, no surprise, just recognition. Like I knew it was there all along. The tape distorted, image twisting, pulling sideways. The shadow leaned down until its face was inches from mine. The picture flickered, then fell sideways, showing the carpet and a sliver of my nightstand. Footsteps, a heavy breath. Then the sound of something metallic scraping across the floor. Cut to black. Silence. Except for the faintest creak from upstairs. Right where my room still waited. I stood there, frozen. The house groaned once, like it remembered something. Then, another creak, directly above me. Slow, deliberate. I killed the power. The screen went dark, but in the reflection, I swore I saw movement behind me. A shape that leaned the way I do. I whispered, "Who's copying who?" And the floorboards answered. I don't remember climbing the stairs. One moment I was frozen in the glow of the TV. The next I was at the landing, hand on the banister, heart like a fist in my throat. Every creak of the wood felt rehearsed, like I'd walked this path 1,000 times already. Maybe I had. Maybe I just hadn't watched it back yet. The hallway was dark, the only light spilling from my half-open bedroom door. Curtains swayed gently, though the window was shut. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Hello?" No answer, only the slow tick of the wall clock and the sound of my own blood in my ears. I pushed the door wider. The air inside felt heavier than outside, like the room had been waiting for me. Everything looked normal. Bed rumpled, phone on the nightstand. But at the foot of the bed, half hidden by shadow, sat the VHS player. Unplugged. Its cord trailed across the floorboards like a snake. And beside it, another tape. My handwriting, fresh ink. I didn't remember writing it. The label read, "Tonight." I bent to pick it up. It was warm, the plastic soft against my palm. When I turned it over, dust fell from the edges, like it had been waiting for years. The curtains stilled. Behind me, the floor creaked. I spun. But the room was empty, only my reflection in the window glass. Half shadow, half me. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe curiosity is stronger than survival. I shoved the tape into the unplugged player anyway. It clicked. The TV flared to life, even though it shouldn't have. Static. Then the hallway. Tonight's date. And me. Standing exactly where I was now, hand hovering over the player. I watched myself, watching myself. On the screen, my reflection turned its head a split second before I did. Its lips moved. No sound came out. It raised its hand like a wave, but its fingers bent the wrong way. Too long, too smooth. I stumbled back, tripping over the cord. The picture lurched. The TV crackled with a voice that wasn't mine, whispering something I couldn't catch. Then the screen went black. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. Then a new image faded in, the front door, wide open. Night outside like a mouth waiting to swallow me. A figure stepped into frame, tall, blurred, but I knew the shape of those shoulders. It was me. Walking out, leaving the house. The tape cut to static. The room was silent again, the TV dark. I was alone. Downstairs, the box of tapes sat open, half full, like it had always been. I don't remember packing them up. but they're gone now. I moved out 2 days later. I'm telling you this from a different apartment, different street. But sometimes at night, I hear a faint creak above me. And I wonder if the next tape is already being made. I used to think patterns were harmless, something your brain did to make sense of the world when the world got too loud. But now I know patterns can stalk you. They can sharpen themselves into something with edges. It started on one of those mornings where you swear you're already behind before you're even out the door. I ducked into the cafe for caffeine I didn't really have time for. Same barista, same playlist, same burnt caramel smell clinging to the air. I remember thinking, nothing unusual here, until she said, "It's paid for," and pointed to a woman I barely noticed. Dark hair, red scarf, quick smile. Gone before I could blink. The barista passed me my drink and a receipt with messy ink at the bottom. Just some number circled like an answer on a test. I thought it was a flirty gesture, maybe a bold one, harmless. But the fact I hadn't seen her face properly nagged at me. That night, going through my bag, I found a second receipt with the same number. Folded neatly, placed deliberately. Not from that cafe. Not from that day. My bag is always zipped, my apartment always locked. But I convinced myself it was coincidence, a mix-up. Someone else's trash stuck to my stuff. Anything except what it really was. The start of a pattern. The next morning, the original receipt, the one I stuffed in my pocket, was missing. I hadn't touched it. I would have remembered. In its place on the counter was a fresh one, warm, as if it had been printed seconds before. A chill slid down my back. Still, I pushed it aside and left for work. On the train, I spotted her again. Red scarf, head bowed, pretending to scroll her phone. She wasn't close, but she wasn't far either. When she looked up and our eyes met, she smiled. Soft, familiar, too familiar. Later, when I reached into my coat, another receipt waited. By the end of the week, she was everywhere. Subtle at first, just far enough away that I could pretend we were two strangers sharing a city routine. But then she showed up outside my office. Lunchtime, same spot, hands tucked in her coat, watching. That night, I found a receipt tucked under my windshield wiper. Clean edges, fresh ink. That was the moment things sharpened. Someone knowing your commute is eerie. Someone knowing your car is unsettling. Someone knowing both, and smiling every time you see them, is something else entirely. I started checking over my shoulder without meaning to. That's when I realized, patterns don't happen to you. Someone makes them. Sleep got harder. My apartment felt too quiet, like the silence had weight. I checked locks twice, sometimes 3 times. I kept the blinds closed, even though it made the place feel like a bunker. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was connecting dots that weren't supposed to connect. But the next day, she followed me onto a different train line. One I never take. I'd switched routes purposely, testing a suspicion I hated having. She boarded 1 minute after me. Stayed exactly 2 cars behind. Never looked directly at me, just tracked my reflection in the window, as if that was enough. And for her, it probably was. I tried reporting it, but what do you tell someone? A woman I barely know is leaving me receipts. Nothing illegal, nothing actionable, just a man sounding paranoid. So I did the next best thing. I started to observe her. If she could take notes on my life, I could take notes on hers. I memorized the way she moved, small steps, deliberate. I memorized the scarf, always the same shade of red. I memorized that smile, the one that said she knew something I didn't. Patterns, routines, repetitions. She didn't bump into me. She scheduled me. One night I found a stack of receipts taped to my apartment door. Dozens, all with the same number circled. But this time, my name was written under each one. Sharp, jagged handwriting that looked rushed and excited. That was the night something in me cracked. Fear didn't vanish, but it changed shape. Because there's a moment, a final threshold, where your brain stops running and starts calculating. You go from prey to analyst. So I asked myself, if she knows my schedule, how did she learn it? If she knows my roots, when did she study them? And what does she want? The last question didn't have an answer. Not yet. I tested her. I left early for work. She still appeared. I doubled back home midday. She waited outside the building as if she knew I'd return. I traveled to a cafe I'd never visited on the other side of the city. She walked in 3 minutes later, breath steady, not even pretending to be surprised. Tracking someone requires resources, time, dedication. But she didn't look disheveled or frantic. She looked calm. Like this was a hobby. Like I was one of many habits she maintained. Not obsession, routine. And routine meant escalation. The escalation came sooner than I expected. I found a receipt in my bathroom cabinet. Another in the glove compartment of my locked car. One slipped between pages of a book I hadn't opened in months. She wasn't showing off. She was communicating. Some people send texts. She left receipts. But what chilled me most was how consistent the number was. Always the same digits. Always circled. Always slightly smudged like the ink. Wasn't fully dry when she handled it. It wasn't a phone number. It was a signature. Last night, I finally found something new. Something that wasn't a receipt. My apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of your breathing. I was brushing my teeth when I heard a faint thud outside my door. Soft, deliberate. When I opened it, no one was there. But taped dead center was a single photograph of me. Not from the cafe, not from the train, from inside my apartment. Taken while I slept. And on the back, written in the same jagged ink.
You missed a pattern.
And then footsteps on the stairwell below me. Getting closer. I didn't breathe when I heard the footsteps. They weren't the heavy kind, more like careful taps, the sound of someone who didn't want to be heard. My hallway is narrow, the cheap fluorescent bulb flickering just enough to make shadows feel like moving things. I backed into my apartment and locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then pressed my ear against the door. The footsteps stopped directly on the other side. No knock. No shift of weight. Just stillness, like she was deciding something. When they finally faded downward, I didn't feel relieved. I felt marked. Someone had been close enough to photograph me in my sleep, and now they knew I'd seen it. I tore through my apartment looking for anything out of place. Broken locks, open windows, disturbed dust. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No fingerprints on the photo. Nothing but the quiet hum of my refrigerator and the feeling of being watched from corners that didn't exist. I tried to convince myself it had to be her. Who else would slip a photograph under my door? Who else would walk the stairs like she owned them? But then another thought hit me, heavier than fear. What if it wasn't just her? What if someone else had been inside? Someone she never intended me to know about. Sleep was out of the question. I sat on the edge of my bed with every light on, staring at the photograph. It wasn't grainy or rushed. It was clear, composed, taken from the foot of my bed. Meaning someone had stood there long enough to focus the shot. I kept replaying the last week in my head. Searching for a moment, I might have left a door unlatched or a window cracked. But the truth was simpler and worse. Whoever took the photo didn't break in. They entered the way someone enters a place they already know. With familiarity. Morning came like a punishment. The sunlight looked wrong, too bright, too loud after a night of silence. I forced myself through my routine, trying to act like normalcy could protect me. On the way to the train, I kept my eyes on reflections, store windows, parked cars, even puddles. I didn't see her. Not on the platform, not on the train, not following me at the transfer station. And somehow, that was worse. Because when a pattern breaks, the next move is deliberate, calculated. She wasn't gone. She was repositioning. At work, I couldn't focus. My coworkers talked around me, typing, laughing, living in a world where routine meant comfort, not threat. Every buzz of my phone made my pulse jump, though no messages ever came. Around noon, I stepped outside just to get air. That's when I saw it. Another receipt stuck to the side of a parking meter, held in place by a single piece of tape. I approached slowly. Same circled number, same jagged ink, but something new underneath.
Check behind you.
My muscles locked. I didn't turn. Not right away. I counted 3 breaths first, because something told me she wanted my reaction more than anything else. When I finally turned, no one was there. Just traffic, strangers, a dog tugging at its leash. Normal city chaos, but the receipt's warning kept echoing. Had she been right behind me moments before, close enough to place it? I scanned the street, looking for the red scarf, the dark hair, the familiar silhouette. Nothing. But then something clicked. The tape holding the receipt wasn't scuffed. It hadn't weathered sun or wind. It had been placed there less than a minute before I found it. She wasn't just following me. She was studying my timing. That realization changed everything. I rushed back home after work, checking my mirrors constantly. No tail, no scarf, no lingering shadow. But when I got inside my apartment building, something felt different. A faint smell, vanilla, maybe lavender, drifted in the hallway, a scent I'd only ever noticed near her. My door looked untouched, but the air around it didn't. When I unlocked it and stepped inside, the first thing I noticed was the silence. Too complete, too settled, as if the room had been holding its breath, waiting for me. The second thing I noticed was worse. My bedroom door was cracked open. I never leave that door open, not even a sliver. I walked toward it slowly, phone camera recording, my hand tight around the doorknob. I pushed it open, expecting, God, I don't know, her standing there, another photo on the bed, something. But the room was empty, except, not entirely. My closet door was open by 2 inches. My closet, which I always close fully, because the latch sticks unless you slam it. Someone had opened it carefully, quietly, respectfully, almost. And then something broke inside me, the illusion that my home was mine. I grabbed a broom handle as a makeshift weapon and yanked the closet door open. Nothing. Just my shirts, my old coat, storage boxes. but when I crouched down to check behind the boxes, I saw it. A single new receipt tucked beneath one of them, pulled flat, deliberately placed. On the back, a new message.
Look closer.
I checked the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Nothing. Then I checked the boxes. One of them had been moved half an inch. That wasn't a clue, it was a demonstration. She'd been in here long enough to explore. I backed out of the room, stomach tight, sweat cold. I was halfway to calling the police when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A new number I did not recognize. The message contained a single image, my building's stairwell, shot from above, and in the corner of the frame, blurred but unmistakable, was me, walking up the stairs an hour earlier, unaware I was being photographed. Then another message arrived.
You're not looking in the right direction.
Followed by a third.
Turn around.
And I swear, I heard the floorboard behind me creak. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed too, but fear does strange things. It can glue your feet to the floor, seal your spine into a rigid beam. Instead, I slid my phone into my pocket, keeping the screen facing outward in case the camera caught anything behind me. My apartment felt wrong. I'd felt watched before, followed before, but this was different. This felt occupied. The air was warmer, as if someone else's breath had been lingering in it. I forced myself to take one slow step forward, then another, pretending I didn't hear the creak. If she wanted me to turn around, she wasn't getting the satisfaction. Not yet. I grabbed the nearest reflective surface I had, my metal water bottle, and angled it just enough to catch the hallway behind me. My pulse hammered so loud I almost didn't hear the tiny ping of my phone receiving another message. But when the reflection finally steadied, what I saw wasn't her. It was my hallway, empty. No figure, no shadow, no red scarf. But the floorboard had creaked. I knew I'd heard it. Unless the message wasn't from her. Unless someone else had slipped into the routine, without my noticing. The worst thought came uninvited. There might be more than one. I backed toward the kitchen, every step measured. My phone buzzed twice more. Message 1. A close-up of my living room rug, fibers flattened, as if someone had stood there seconds ago. Message 2. A photo of my kitchen doorway taken from inside the kitchen. I felt my blood drop to my feet. Someone wasn't trying to scare me. They were orchestrating me, guiding me, hurting me. I reached for a knife from the block but stopped. If someone was already in my kitchen, the last thing I wanted was to walk into their reach blind. I steadied my breathing, forcing logic through the panic. If they were here, they weren't sloppy. They wanted me to know. Instead, I lunged for the breaker panel and slammed the main switch. My apartment plunged into darkness. I waited. Stillness, no movement. If someone was hiding, they'd have to shift eventually. Night vision takes time. Panic is immediate. I counted silently. 1, 2, 3. Listening for even the faintest scrape. At count 9, something brushed the far wall. A subtle slide, like fingertips tracing paint. I wasn't alone. But that sound told me something important. They didn't expect the darkness. Which meant I had one advantage, however thin. I crouched low and moved along the wall toward my bedroom, the only room with a lock I trusted. My phone vibrated again, hard, frantic. I ignored it. Survival first, explanations later. When I reached my room, I slipped inside and shut the door, silently locked it. Wedged a chair under the knob. Then I checked my phone. 9 missed messages, all from the same number. The first one was a photo of my bedroom door taken minutes earlier from the hallway. The second one, a text, not an image.
Wrong move.
My chest tightened. Whoever was messaging me wasn't outside the apartment. They were inside the routine, and I played into their hands. I backed away from the door, gripping my phone like it could stop a person. Think. Whoever they were, they wanted control. They wanted me isolated. They wanted me reacting instead of choosing. But they hadn't broken the door yet. Why? Because they weren't here to attack. They were here to show me something, or take something. In the stillness, another detail surfaced, one that made my stomach drop. The original woman, the one with the red scarf. She hadn't made contact in over a day. Not a glimpse, not a receipt, nothing. Had she been replaced? Or had this been her plan all along? I took a gamble. I dialed the police. As it rang, I crouched next to the bed, listening for movement on the other side of the door. Nothing. The operator picked up. I whispered everything. Intrusion, stalking, photos, receipts. She told me to stay put and stay quiet. Officers were on the way. For the first time in weeks, I felt a thin thread of hope, until a new buzz vibrated through my phone. Another message from the same number.
The police won't find me.
I froze. Then I realized something even worse. They weren't saying the police wouldn't find them. They were saying the police wouldn't find her. I read the next message with shaking hands.
She's been gone since last night.
Another buzz.
You're chasing the wrong person.
The room tilted. My breath hitched. I replayed the last 24 hours. Every place I'd looked for the red scarf. Every reflection I'd checked. I hadn't seen her at all. Not a glimpse. Because someone else had stepped into her routine. Twisted it. Claimed it. The receipts. The messages. The photograph. These weren't her anymore. This was someone new. Someone worse. Someone who wanted me to realize there were layers to what was happening. Layers I hadn't even started to peel. A final message arrived. One word.
Listen.
I held my breath at first. There was nothing. Then, from the far end of my apartment, beyond the locked bedroom door, came a sound so soft I almost doubted it. A whimper. Muffled. Not mine. Not male. A woman's voice broken. Hurting. And then a second sound followed. A tap 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 on the wall. Slow and rhythmic. A signal. A call for help. Someone was inside my apartment who wasn't the intruder. Someone who needed saving. And someone had put her there for me to find. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer, carving through the night. I unlocked the bedroom door and stepped out, broom handle in hand, heart pounding hard enough to blur my vision. The whimper came again, guiding me down the dark hallway. When I reached the living room, the truth hit me like a punch. Sitting on the floor, wrists bound, scarf torn from her throat, was her. The original woman, the one who'd followed me, the one I thought was the threat. Her eyes were wide, terrified. She shook her head frantically, trying to speak through the gag. And behind her, taped to the wall, was a final receipt. Not with her number, but with a new message.
Every pattern starts somewhere.
Then the lights flicked back on, and I realized the intruder had slipped out, past me, past everything, leaving me with the one person I never expected to save. The police searched my apartment until nearly sunrise. They cut her free, wrapped her in blankets, and let her out past the threshold where my life used to feel solid. I expected answers, but she couldn't give any. Her voice was gone from hours of screaming no one heard. Before they took her to the hospital, she looked at me, really looked, and mouthed a single word: sorry. I still don't know if she meant for following me, or for becoming part of someone else's design. I sat on my couch long after they left, the lights still washed out and buzzing from the emergency override. The apartment felt hollow, echoing with the space where someone else had walked freely for who knows how long. Before clearing the scene, the officers packed every receipt into evidence bags, the ones from my door, my pockets, the closet, even the one taped behind her. Watching all that paper disappear into boxes was strangely unsettling. Those receipts had haunted me, but they had also been the only proof I hadn't imagined any of this. When the last officer closed the lid, my apartment felt like it exhaled. And not in a comforting way. More like something unfinished had been sealed away, waiting. They finally cleared me to leave. I locked the door behind them, even though it didn't matter anymore, and stepped into the early morning air. Cars rushed by, people jogged, a delivery truck beeped in reverse. The world was perfectly, infuriatingly normal. But the pattern had shifted. A few days later, I returned with a friend to collect what little I still wanted from that place. Everything was exactly as it had been, dust settling where chaos used to sit, except for one detail I couldn't explain. On the floor near the entryway, a single receipt lay, face down, clean, crisp, untouched. It wasn't one of the originals. It wasn't police property, and the handwriting on the back wasn't hers. It held just 4 words.
You weren't the first.
I stood there for a long time, holding that lone sheet of paper, realizing something I'd been trying not to think about since the night they found her. Patterns don't disappear. They move on. And whoever started this one hasn't stopped.